Welcome back to your lesson on Hangul. Today we're going to be learning many more vowels in the alphabet. And let's start with our first one. All. Here's how to write it. You'll use two strokes. The first one short, going from the left to the right, and the second one longer, going from the top to the bottom, meeting at the right of the first stroke. So we'll put it together with our previous consonant, the empty consonant, and we'll get this sound. All. Now, don't get this sound confused with the previous one we did, O. That one, the vowel went up, kind of like a tree, an oak tree, O. This one goes to the side, all. I recommend practicing this one extra because it's often confused with O, but they do sound very different. All. Our next vowel is U. Let's take a look at the stroke order. The first stroke goes from the left to the right, and the second stroke goes from the middle of that one and down. So again, let's use our empty consonant and put it together into a syllable, and we get U. Note that this is another horizontal vowel, so the consonant goes on top and the vowel goes on the bottom. U. If I've ever seen a horizontal vowel, it's this next one. And you can probably guess the stroke order before I even have to show you, but here it is anyway. And that's it. So let's use our empty consonant and hear what this one sounds like. Practice this one a few times extra. This is also one that tends to take extra time to master. It's kind of like someone punches you in the stomach. If I've ever seen a vertical vowel before, it would be this one. And you can also guess how this one would be written. So here's the stroke order. As you would expect, it's just one line going down. This one is pronounced as, well, let's use our empty consonant to hear it. E. So now let's do some more practice using all of the letters that we've learned. And I recommend that you pause the video here before I say them and try to say them on your own first. Ko, nu, te, li, mum, 분, 실, 전, 흥. Let's do it one more time. 거, 누, 드, 리, 멈, 분, 실, 전, 흥. Pay attention to the way that the syllables are being made. Some of these will use horizontal, while others will use vertical vowels, and that will create a slightly different form to these syllable blocks. Now let's do our next vowel, which is this one, E. Here's how to write it. There are three strokes for this one. The first one is short, going left to right, and the second two will go from the top to the bottom as longer lines. So let's put this one together with our empty consonant and hear what it sounds like. E. Practice it on your own. E. Here is our next vowel. This one is written a little bit differently, but it actually these days has the exact same pronunciation as E, which we just learned. So here's how to write it. This one also has 3 strokes, but the order in which they're drawn is slightly different. The first one goes from the top to the bottom, the second one goes from the middle of that to the right, and the third one is another long stroke from the top to the bottom. Again, this is pronounced exactly the same as our previous vowel. The only difference will be that some words will be spelled with one or the other. Here's what it looks like as a syllable. E. Just like before. E. 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 And here is our next vowel, Ya. Let's look at the stroke order for how it's made. This one has 3 strokes, the first one long from the top to the bottom, and the second and third ones being short, going about 1/3 and 2/3 of the way down the first one to the right. So let's add our empty consonant and hear this one as a syllable. Ya. 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 Our next vowel looks quite similar to that. However, it goes the opposite direction, and the stroke order is also a little bit different. For this one, the stroke order will start with those 2 short lines, 1 and 2, followed by a third longer stroke which goes from the top to the bottom. So it looks like a mirrored version of Ya, which we just did. So let's put this into a syllable and hear what it sounds like. Yaw. 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 These ones kind of sound similar to the other vowels we've learned. Ah, the first one we learned, as well as O, another one that we learned. But now they have kind of a Y sound mixed in. So we get Ya with our previous one, and now Yaw with this one. If you can pronounce Ah and O correctly, you'll be able to also pronounce Ya and Yaw correctly. So again, Yaw. 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 Our next vowel is Yo. And this one looks kind of like the O vowel we made first, but now with an additional line. And the way to draw it is also quite similar. The first 2 strokes will go from the top to the bottom and connect about 1/3 and 2/3 of the way along the third stroke, which goes from the left to the right. So let's add our empty consonant. Yo. 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 Previously, we just had yaw. Now we have yo. Just like we had our vowel before, O. This one adds in a kind of Y sound and we get yo. 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 Here is our next vowel. This one looks like the yo vowel we just did turned upside down. In fact, this one is pronounced as you. You. We previously learned the vowel oo, but now we know the vowel u. It looks a lot like the vowel oo, but with an additional line. So let's learn how to write it. First, draw a line that goes from the left to the right, followed by 2 more lines, which start at the 1/3 and 2/3 portions of the first line going down. If we add our empty consonant to this, we can get a proper syllable. You. 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 So let's do some practice with everything that we've learned so far, but I want you to actually pause the video here and try it on your own first. Okay. Ke. Ya. Dio. Dio. Mu. Pe. Se. Yo. Cho. Hugh. And let's do it one more time. Ke. Ya. Dio. Ryo. Mu. 배, 새, 여, 조, 휴. This is our next vowel, ye. Here's how to write it. This one has 4 strokes, the first 2 being short, going from the left to the right, and meeting up with the third stroke, a longer one which goes from the top to bottom, followed by a 4th stroke which is next to the third stroke, which also goes from the top to the bottom. We previously used the vowels e and e, which have a different way of writing them and the same sound. Well, we can do that as well with a y sound. So this one actually is ye. 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 Notice how it's just the e sound we learned before and looks a lot like that with an extra stroke with an added y sound. Ye. And just like we had e and we had e, we also have ye. This one has the exact same sound as ye, which we just did, but looks a little bit different, just like before with e and e. This one's stroke order starts with a long stroke going down from the top to the bottom, followed by 2 more strokes going from the left to the right, and a 4th stroke again going from the top to the bottom, touching the ends of the 2nd and 3rd strokes. And just like our previous syllable, this one would also be pronounced as ye. 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 It also looks a lot like our vowel e, just with a y sound added in. Ye. Ye. So you might have noticed that every time you see 2 lines, it's the same thing as that original vowel with a y sound added. We had o and yo, all and yo, a and ya, etc. And the same goes for these sounds, ye and ye. So let's do some quick practice using these 2 new vowels. Ye, 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 ye. And once more. Ye, 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 ye. Now there's one more thing that I need to explain before we finish this lesson, and that is whenever you have this consonant, which kind of is like an S, combining with any vowel sound that has E in it. Any time that consonant, which is kind of like an S, comes before any vowel sound that has kind of an E sound in it in any way, that S will be pronounced more like an SH, sh, in English. Now, there are a few other vowels called diphthongs, which we will be learning later that this also applies to, but the concept is the same. So here are some examples of vowels where that happens. First, some examples where it doesn't. Sa, so, su, se, se, se. And now some examples of the E vowel where it does. She. Notice it's not si, it's she, with an SH sound. Sha, shaw, shu. Even though this is yo, it has an eo sound, E. That E vowel causes this letter to become pronounced like SH. Shu, xie, xie. So anytime you have an E sound, whether that comes from one of these vowels which has kind of a Y sound in it, or just straight from the vowel E itself, S will become more like an SH sound. Let's do these one more time. Sa, so, su, se, 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 she, sha, shaw, shu, shu, xie, xie. Phew, we did a lot of new learning in this lesson. I will see you guys in the next lesson. Make sure that you practice this one before moving on. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.